With this being your second book now, what were some of the lessons learned from your first go around that you applied to this go around?
Well, you know what's funny? I actually did something different. I ended up writing a lot of the book before I interviewed anybody. I don't know that I do that again, but I just had so many feelings about it. This book ended up being a real cathartic book for me to write.
Yeah.
And it really spoke to a lot of insecurities I had about myself and that I didn't even realize. It was like this self-reflective thing. Uh, Insecurity, like, like a lot of people, I think I felt imposter syndrome. Like sometimes I felt I've had opportunities I didn't deserve. I don't deserve this. Some other guy should get this gig. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why am I playing in an arena right now? I don't like, I had all these things, which is interesting. It caused me to reflect. So going back and actually tracing who I was as a listener through my teenagers, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I'm so defensive of this music. This is what helped me get through all that stuff. I actually had crushing self-doubt my whole life, but this music emboldened me and gave me purpose, and something inside me loved it so much I was willing to go past my own fears of my own ineptitude to go and try it, because I just had to be inside it. I had to be a part of it. And that's what that's why this book was different. It became something else. And then after, I had to go and interview people am I full of bullshit here? Like, I have to corroborate this. Did I make this up? And it was interesting to see a lot of times the things I felt were fortified, and sometimes they were challenged too. And in both cases, I was very happy because it helped me get a little closer to the truth of why I was actually doing this in the first place, why I was writing this book.
Give us an example of someone who challenged your notion of where you thought this was going.
I'll give you two. Rudy Sarzo was one, and Rick Emmett for similar reasons. With Rudy, I was talking about the Mental Health album like it's an 80s record, because to me, it was the first to market pop metal record, really. I mean,
amen.
Number one in the charts. And he's going, nah, man, it's a 70s record. Like, Frankie and I are from the 70s. So when Frankie Banali and because I was talking about some of the shots, the way you orchestrated that, and he goes, wasn't orchestrated. I just know that Frankie in the third verse goes, bum, 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 bum. I know Frankie does this thing in the third verse, and we don't have to think about it because we played top 40 and disco gigs, and he just knew the way he played. And they recorded that album at Pasha Studios, a jingle house that just happened to have these PCM mics up on the wall that created this reflective sound that we've come to know as this kind of definitive 80s drum sound. So it was really just environment, 70s approach. The difference being you had Spencer Proffer producing, and he has this vision for participatory rock and has the song in mind. It's going to be Come On Feel the Noise by Slade. I just got to find some band who'll sing it, someone who could sing like Noddy Holder. Well, there's Dubrow playing around the bars. Hey, I'll give you a shot. You sing this song for me. We'll do a couple of years. I'll give you a production deal. And I'm just going, wow, okay. So I'm looking at it from the 80s perspective, but really I had to go back further. And Rick Emmett did the same thing, because I was talking with Rick and we had a great long conversation. And Rick goes, by that point, Triumph has already had a career.
Yeah.
So we're not thinking like an 8-bit. Like, my references are Genesis and Gentle Giant and Yes and folk music and classical music. And so he goes, you're listening to, Thunder 7 and Spellbound. Yeah. But really, by that point, I've already yearning to do something very different, right? So he's not looking at those bands. I had them as contemporaries, like the US Festival. You're a contemporary of Motley Crue. You're a contemporary of Scorpions. And he's going, well, I think I'm kind of a contemporary of Rush, and I'm a contemporary of, these other bands. I want to be a contemporary of Led Zeppelin. So it was just interesting to see, to look at it from a different prism, right? To see that maybe some of the things that I love about the sounds of those records weren't things that they loved doing. Like Rudy said at one point, he said the 80s, for him, a lot of times the cereal box became more important than what was in the cereal box and the cereal itself. Mm. And I was like, oh, how can you say that about Whitesnake? You know, but his Whitesnake was the '70s Whitesnake. Like he liked that one better, and he wasn't in that one.
Right.
And I'm going,
right.
what? How could that be? You know, so there was a couple of moments like that where it was interesting to see, because like Rudy said, he goes, I was there before rock and roll was there. I was born before rock and roll. So I'm like, okay. And John Reagan, same thing, you know, he did what the hair metal thing with Fraley's Comet, but Ace had been through Kiss, he'd been through Frampton. These are guys just trying to get a commercial foothold. They're just trying to get a job. Like, but they're 70s. It's a 60s, 70s approach. And they're fighting against what they feel are constrictions, because they came up in an era where it really was free. It really was all about the music, because formats weren't really formats yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
The guys in Rush talk like that too. Just in interviews and in their movies, you know, documentaries and stuff, they talk like that too. Exactly what you're saying. Their contemporaries were, you know, a little bit more of a prog rock side of things, but eventually had to fit what the machine was asking them to do, or it was shit or get off the pot, kind of, which is a familiar thing until by the time, you know, well, in more recent times, I won't put in a year on it, the labels are, it's more like real estate. Let's regentrify this. Okay, we need this part for a 7-Eleven. We need a Starbucks over here, and we need it. Let's see what makes the most money. It becomes cookie cutter at some point, and Rush wasn't having any of that, so they wrote 2112. When the label wanted them to sound like Bad Company or something, which is what was hot at the time. I get it. Yeah, but they were like more like Middle Finger, and then by moving pictures they had like, we got you because we figured out how to straddle the line. We can do, you know, more of a pop sensibility, but we're still a prog metal band, kind of, because they kind of invented it, you know.
And I've always been envious of that type of conviction, right? Where it's not clouded. Like, what is it like to love music that much, where the golden opportunities are in your hand, and you jeopardize all because you actually can't live with yourself if you don't do it that way. Like Neil Peart, I'll go work on the farm. I don't care. I'm not doing that. I can't pretend a stranger's a long way to friend. I'm gonna do it my way. I have to. Yeah. Like, I mean, and to have that strength and the belief where at least they'll know, like, I love that story.
Yeah, me too. But the thing is, they fucking did it. They did
it anyway.
They figured out their own way to appease the assholes who wanted them to just like completely change their whole way they did shit. It's like, we're not doing that. So F up you, and here's the Temples of Syrinx, and I'm going to sing even higher. And we're gonna play even faster, and we're gonna have explosions and shit. You got find me one Bad Company record that does that. Yeah, find me one Bad Company song that's 9 minutes long. You know, you can't. So I don't know. It wasn't like they were harping on Bad Company, and neither am I. I love Bad, but the point is the point. Yeah, Tom Sawyer at a concert today is being played right after Highway to Hell, or right after, for, you know, whatever, anything that's contemporary, I'll say it, hair metal. Tom Sawyer is right there with it. Is Rush a hair metal band?
Right. See,
you see where I'm going with it? Somebody who's just writing on a box, throw the hair metal records in there. Are they throwing Rush in there?
I hope not.
What the fuck? Are they throwing Led Zeppelin in there? Oh my God, I just sinned by even putting those in the same sentence.
Yeah. Well, they're another case like Van Halen, right? Where it's template stuff, you know? Yeah. You got the dark occult-based guitar player, you got the gorgeous lead singer who can sing in the stratosphere.
Shit, it sounds like we're talking about night songs again.
There you go. Well, that's it. Maybe we are.
Wow.